This is the meeting of the Municipal Anchorage Board of Adjustment meeting of March 26, 2014. And we need to identify ourselves for the record.
Barbara Jones, Municipal Clerk, staff support to the Board of Adjustment.
Robert B. Stewart, Board Member.
Aaron Puccio, Board Member.
Julia Tucker, Assembly Council and Council to the Board of Adjustment.
Lisa Slisner, Record Coordinator for the Municipal Clerk's Office.
All right. It appears that we have a quorum. There are 3 regular members on the board normally and 2 alternates, so 2 regular members being present that would satisfy the quorum requirement, although it feels a little awkward, I must say, that there are not more present. We have here an agenda that somebody from the clerk's office very nicely prepared. Is there any question about the agenda? Any additions, deletions, changes that we want to make? If there aren't any, I do not think we have any minutes of the previous meeting, and there's no old business. The election of the chair is listed as new business here. The question is whether we want to do that. I'm still the chair because I'm the last elected person. So the question is whether we want to elect a new chair today or whether we want to simply postpone that. Bob, what's your position on that?
You know, if you're in agreement, I would like to keep the current chair, and that way it would just cut down the amount of administrative business that we have to do for the next meeting.
That's fine by me, and I'm willing to do that. So what you're proposing is that I be reappointed by acclamation, so to speak?
Yes.
Is that right?
If you don't object.
No, I don't object to that, and the record should reflect that I was reappointed until the next election. We are here today to set the time for consideration of an appeal, and the case number is 2014-1. And we have just been handed the record on appeal, and hopefully the transcript underneath.
Just the opposite. The transcript is on the top and the record is on the documentary evidence is on the bottom.
Okay. All right, so we have been handed that, and we can get busy and review that. Madam Clerk, do you have a schedule for when the appeal briefs are
Yes.
due?
Did Lisa pass these out?
Oh, right here.
Yes. So Lisa and I have been working on the procedures and the process, and she's come up with this, and so you can see that here is where we're at. We're right in the middle, where we need to send the letter to the appellee and the appellant, and we are proposing to do that tomorrow. We have a letter that's drafted and ready to go, and then we've just kind of calculated the dates from that letter, and then it will show how the rest of the dates would fall out then. And of course, it's remotely possible that things will go quicker than that, because I expect they're not going to wait the 7 days to pay for the record, and I expect that they're not going to wait. Then the other days are a matter of the code, but I don't think they'll wait the 7 days.
Well, that's true. On the other hand, looking at the schedule that you have here regarding the briefs of the parties, it's also possible that there's some slippage because one or both may be asking for an extension of time. But I think we should, for the time being, assume that this schedule will hold. Now, Julia, you need how much time following the receipt of the last brief? Let's assume that is actually filed May 12th.
I usually ask you for 30 days because that takes
This is
into
Barbara.
account other things in my schedule. And we do have I know one thing in my schedule, coming up. And so sometimes I can shorten that up depending on how it goes, but I like to have 30 days.
Is that feasible considering this particular appeal?
I don't know.
Well, should we simply assume 30 days for the time being? That 30 days will be enough?
Do you have any?
Well, I think that 30 days will be enough.
You think so?
I think that, yeah, if you're asking me if 30 days will be
Yeah,
enough.
I was.
Yeah, I thought you were saying,
No.
could I have 30 days, or
No,
were
no,
they
no,
going to be
no.
pressing it faster?
Do you have any major projects that might
I do have a couple
interfere
of
with the
things.
30-day requirement?
I do have a couple of things coming up that are going to be heading in and around that time, and then I'm also out of the office here in April from the 10th to the 22nd, I think.
Okay, but
But
that shouldn't
that shouldn't interfere with us at all, so that
Shouldn't interfere
part's
with
good.
your schedule. Okay, so let's assume that you need 30 days from 5/12, so that we put it at 6/12, 6/11 actually. And we would need some time to prepare and review. And I have a calendar here if you need it. I will be out the week, well, actually from the 25th of June until July the 4th. So we should do it right afterwards. Does that make sense to you?
Right after,
July the 4th?
I think that would work good for me. Also, because it allows me to want to be reviewing this on your time off, but it allows
Yeah.
the flexibility. So.
That would give some flexibility. Mr. Stewart, are you available during the week of July 6th, I'm sorry?
Monday would be the 7th
Yes,
through
yes.
like Thursday the 10th. Yes.
You are. And Madam Clerk, is that working for you or for
The
your
clerk's
deputies?
office will certainly make it work.
Okay. So then the druthers is, we have usually done it on a Wednesday or Thursday. Do you have any druthers whether this is on Wednesday or Thursday?
Did you know I have one druther, and that's what time on Wednesday?
We generally start 5:30.
That would be fine.
And
Wednesdays are tough if there's a late assembly meeting and we start early in the morning, but later in the evening, that'll be okay for us.
I
I don't know if there's an assembly meeting on that week.
on the previous
I
Tuesday.
didn't bring my calendar.
Yeah.
I can tell you that meeting is probably going to last a while. So we cannot have you fall asleep.
That,
In
I
between.
think Wednesday would be fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Julia?
That's good for me.
Okay, Bob?
That's good for me.
Okay, so that's.
And then
good.
did you want to set, you had
Well,
thought
just one
about-
second. So we have right now set one date for July 9th at 5:30. Now, both Mr. Stewart and I and the others here can make it. The question is, we need a third member. And so just to be on the safe side, I would like to propose that we take also the following Wednesday, just as a backup date. So that would be the 16th. question is, who should be the alternate? And that's a little tricky to decide right now, and so my thought is that we simply designate one right now, and if that person can't do it, then we go to the next. And the one that springs to my mind right now is Mr. Haxby, John Haxby, and I would propose that he be the third member. And if he cannot do it, then it should be Bruce Webb. And if neither one of them can do it for one reason or another, well, then we have to get together again and reschedule, I'm afraid. Does that make sense, that we do it that way?
It does. It
Yeah.
does. I had one question. If it turns out that that either of these Wednesdays, would it work for Mr. Haxby, but Thursday of those weeks would? Do you want to explore that before?
So you want us to schedule 4 days, basically?
Well,
Is that what
it's
you're
sort of
saying?
an I know how the clerk's office had some dates and we all signed up, and it turned out tonight was
Yeah.
the best one, but I only because you said that Wednesday or Thursday worked for you, and
What about using the alternate and making that on the 17th on Thursday?
Instead of the
Give us
16th?
option.
Instead of the 16th?
Yeah.
You're saying?
Would that give us enough flexibility?
I'm not sure that one day would make a difference, but if you think that's,
If, I
That's
don't know what
preferable.
John's schedule is.
yeah, we don't know. So why don't we just schedule it for the 17th as an alternate date rather than 16th? Backup date. Is that okay with everyone? Thursday?
Mhm.
That's good.
Gives you another day to sleep off an assembly meeting, late assembly meeting.
They're pretty good in the summer. They don't like to go too late in the summer.
and these gals get. I'm the one who sleeps off the assembly meetings when they run late. I want 12-hour separation. These gals work really late and come back
Come back
like
at-
8 hours or less later and are fully above board. So.
Well, I remember on
Fully on board.
ZBA, sitting until midnight, and then having to be in the office at 8 o'clock the next morning. It
Whoops.
was tough. I don't do that anymore. Okay, so much for that. What else do we need to decide, Julia?
Well, I thought, in keeping with the alternate date, sometimes you have scheduled a potential regroup if things were complicated enough and
That we have a meeting before.
that we had, well, you have a
Oh,
meeting
and
after.
following.
Right, following. And so,
That's absolutely true, but the question is whether we should schedule that now, or whether we should simply wait until the hearing date and then schedule it. What's your druthers? Because I can tell you that will be necessary. Are you aware of what we're talking about? Once we've had the meeting and we have decided, Julia needs to put that in writing, we need to review that and then come together and approve that.
Sure.
So, the question really is, how long is it going to take you to put it together? What's your schedule? And so I would prefer that we simply wait until the hearing date and then can kind of see. You know, one question is it going to be a complicated decision anyway? It will take you a while. Or is it fairly simple that we can do in a week or two? So that would be my preference, actually. Bob, do you have any thoughts on that?
It's a little hard to make a prognosis without
Yeah.
looking at some of the issues in here. But just looking through the code, it seems to me like there's going to be a number of issues that I can see. So, this is not going to be an easy one. It's going to be much like that one that we had on the hillside.
Yep, that's true. So.
well, I'm good with that. I only raise it, but just so that it's been a few years since we've gotten together, so I just am a little rusty on our process also. So I'm very happy to wait until we meet and see how it
Okay.
looks and how the briefing and the issues
Yeah.
look to schedule that. But I think it's good we talked about it and all refreshed our memory that that is what happened, so that's good for me.
Okay.
Do we have to give notice to the appellants and the appellees? There's another appellee in this too. For every meeting that we have, including the one,
Which, the meeting to, well, they're, first of all, they can sit in at our deliberative meeting either on July 9 or July 17.
Yeah.
And they are also allowed to be present, of course, because it's a public meeting, when we vote on the final findings and decision. So they do get notice. I can't
And I
remember
think-
how this works.
Does your office handle that, notice? Yeah, so they'll, once the third member is confirmed as available, then the clerk's office will issue the notice.
and then they also post it on the board outside, right?
Mhm.
I would
So that-
suspect so.
So that they get
Yeah.
general public notice.
On the board, on the website, and then we'll specifically notice the parties.
Yeah.
Is there still a telephone? No, okay.
If there
Oh,
is,
it's
we're
really
not,
good.
I think there's somewhere that it says there is, but we're not using it.
And then there'll be enough time, I think that that when we meet with the briefing and then schedule the next meeting, we'll make sure we give ourselves enough time to have the public notice taken care of, because
That was
chances are.
one concern I had.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
hearing, so I'm sorry
Yeah,
to
yeah.
interrupt you there, but, and so chances are that public notice requirement, the advance requirement, is gonna be shorter than it's gonna take me to draft the decision anyway, unless something, happens,
Yeah.
like a complete remand or
Right, right.
something. Absent that, then we'll still have time to notice the public for that.
Okay. So, to summarize, we have established one firm meeting, one alternative meeting, and Barbara, would you please send an email, particularly, well, to all four of us, but specifically addressing that we have chosen John Hagsby to sit on this case, if he can do it either on July or July 17, July 9 or July 17, and if he cannot do it on either one of those two dates, that then Bruce Webb will be asked if he is available on either one of those dates, first on the 9th and then on the 17th.
We will do that.
And if neither one of them is available, then you should let us know right away so that we can reschedule it.
I wonder if, with Julia's permission, if a scheduling meeting would be procedural and we could possibly do that by email rather than having to convene another meeting.
I don't think that's possible because these are public meetings. Can that be done?
Well, I think what she's suggesting is that we've had this public meeting,
Yeah.
and you are confirmed as chair, and that as with some other procedural questions that have come up in the
Oh, I
interim,
see.
they send them to the chair, and so I believe her question is, can the rescheduling be done
Informally, so to speak.
informally, so to speak?
I think just for purposes of scheduling, I don't think that should be a problem. As long as we don't decide anything. That's the crux of the public meeting requirement, of course, is, can't decide anything. But as long as we simply schedule a meeting, I think that's appropriate.
And I think that works
Yeah.
out too, because then as they did for this meeting, some dates can be gone around, everybody
Exactly.
can weigh in and
Yeah.
proposals can be done, and that, I think that's
Yeah.
Just make sure we've got enough time to get the notice out,
right.
so we don't have somebody challenging us on
What is the
Notice.
notice requirement in terms of dates? Help me
Um,
here.
Well, it's probably 48 hours. It's probably, we have 24 hours on some issues, but typically it's 48
We're
hours.
not talking about a 30-day, correct?
No,
Okay.
48 hours.
Good.
Of course, we would prefer more than 48 hours.
Sure, but that's the minimum.
Yes, I
That's what
believe
you're
that's the
already saying.
minimum.
All right. Is there anything else that we need to discuss, bring up?
I was going to ask Lisa, since Barbara said you had had the contact, do you know when Mr. Webb is expected to return from Africa?
I do not, because I did not have direct contact with Bruce Webb. I heard through the grapevine. I was at a Board of Ethics meeting, and we were discussing disclosure, and I didn't have Bruce Webb's. And the chair, Keith Silver, he said, I know Bruce, he's on my Facebook, and he's posting pictures from Africa. He's in Africa. So I just
Oh,
sort of
that's how
know
it
through the
came about.
grapevine, yes. And he hasn't responded to any emails, so I don't have a, I don't get a sense that he's getting that communication with his app, so.
Well, but we first talked about this about 4 weeks ago, wasn't it? 3 or 4 weeks ago, so it seems to
Oh.
me if you're on a safari, you ought to be back soon.
What is the nature of this visit?
Maybe
then-
you moved there.
And then it might help if the board, here at this meeting, determines that it would be helpful to have another alternate fill out the board, not necessarily to hear this case, but just in
Oh,
general.
I know,
And then if that's recorded in the minutes, then the clerk's office has something in the minutes to then say that, to give the mayor's office jingle. And
Absolutely.
I
so.
can tell you that I have been in touch with, what is her name again?
Karen Bretz.
Karen, not once, but several times, and we are all scrambling to come up with some candidates, and so far we have not been successful. Karen has not been successful. So if any of you are aware of anybody, spread the word.
What type of qualifications are you looking for?
I would like to see somebody who has been involved in land use planning here in the municipality in some form, by being either on the zoning board or on the ZIBA or on the planning board or something like that. So the person needs to have some experience and some feel for land use planning issues and for Title 21. I think that's a real requirement.
And have served on one of the lower boards.
Well, I'm not sure necessarily that
Okay.
that's true, but if you, for example, there are some lawyers that have been working on some of these issues
Got
quite
it,
a
got
bit.
it, got it.
And if
Okay.
there is somebody who is willing, I think you ought to be looked at and,
And if folks like Sheila Selkrate, who have served in planning before, and was, I think, head of the department there before, and is no longer with the municipality, but when I first came, a person who was retired from the planning department, and now I can't remember his name, but he was
Kevin.
Kevin.
You're talking about
Kevin Waring. And so Kevin Waring was a chair of this board for a long
For a long time.
And he was a retired planner from the city. So they can't be in current employment, but having a legal nexus or prior service or
Okay.
any of those avenues.
The other thing that I think is really important is that there be continuity, so it needs to be somebody who's going to be around for a while. I don't like to see people on this board who are just sitting there for one term, quite frankly. I think they ought to be there longer, and the prior history of this board has proven that to be really, really beneficial. Kevin Waring was on there for a long time. Tom Klinkner, the attorney, was on there for a long, long time.
Susan Reed.
Susan Reeves was there for a while. So I think that's another consideration.
I served as well as staff for the, for a commission for almost 10 years. And that was one of the things that we really encouraged, people served for 3, there were 9 members that served each for 3 years. And so we would encourage people and said that there was an expectation that your last term that you would serve as an officer. And if not, you would end up with people, you would end up coming onto a board, and sometimes someone would get elected, chair or vice chair, their first term on the board, and they wouldn't know what was going on. So I understand exactly what you mean about that continuity and the understanding of what the board is about.
Okay, but I must tell you, I'm really concerned about it. I have been talking to people, but there seems to be some hesitation. So I'm not sure what that means, but in any event, I have been unsuccessful, and Karen apparently has been unsuccessful so far also.
I know there are a lot of vacancies
Yeah.
on boards and commissions right now, so.
So, well, we also have, don't we have a mayoral election coming around? No, but we have, well, let's not talk about that, but there is a possibility for vacancy there, of course, too, and that makes people a little hesitant, because they don't know which direction it's going to go. So, anyway, having said that, is there anything else we need to discuss?
I wanted to clarify something. Bob, did you say that there was another appellee besides the one that
Oh,
was here?
Star,
Yeah, okay, so there is an appellee, but yeah, that was.
and they're in a
okay.
file.
But he's the one that's listed here,
Yeah,
right?
and then
So-
there's an attorney representing, there's a law firm representing him.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Anything at all?
I don't.
If I don't, if we don't have anything else, I assume we should adjourn. Thank you for coming. This board is now adjourned.